Hello everyone, I'm Santiago, and today I'm gonna be testing Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order on the GTX 1050 Ti. To skip to any of the resolutions tested, check the timestamps down in the description. So in this card I'll show you two configurations per resolution. First 1080p targeting 30 frames per second, then I lowered the settings as much as possible, trying to be closer to 60 frames. Unfortunately, that won't be the number we're getting. On 900p and 720p it will be the exact same thing by using higher settings. So my recommendation here is that if you want 30 frames per second, so the best visuals possible, do 1080p on a mix between high and epic. Then if you want 60 frames per second, consider using a mix between medium and epic on 900p. You'll see that in this video. And if you don't care about resolution and want more frames, on 720p is much easier to get there. With this being an Unreal Engine 4 game, I was pretty familiar with the options menu, and overall, as usual, the options that affected performance the most were shadows and visual effects and post-processing. Your best bet to improve performance is to lower those three together. Depending on what's on screen, one will affect the performance more than others. In general, shadows and post-processing made the biggest FPS difference, and also there are three options for each of them. You don't have low, medium, high, very high and ultra. You have medium, high and epic. While this makes it easier to just configure the game, I think there's a lot of tweaking potential left behind. I say this because the game still looks great on the lowest settings. There's less shadow distance, lower resolution shadows, no reflections, less complex effects, going from the lowest to the highest pretty much. So yeah, it seems that they wanted to maintain the aesthetic of the game even on the lowest settings. If you play with the settings a lot, make sure to restart the game. There are some shadow distance bugs if you don't do so. Then on the system RAM side of things, I saw that 8 gigs of RAM was enough as long as it's on dual channel. It went over 8 gigabytes of usage sometimes while traversing through different areas. So if you run into that, just restart the game and it will be fine. On the CPU side though, it's a different thing. A quad-core CPU is enough to maintain 60 frames per second in most cases, but there are tons of stutters when going to new areas. You'll see that in the video. When I'm traversing the environment, there will be some spikes in the frame time, which will be even worse the first time you go into a new area. This is not exclusive to quad-core CPUs, but is way more noticeable than if you have, for example, a 6-core i5 or Ryzen 5. Those stutters still happen, but they are not as noticeable, so it seems to be the game just loading something very quickly. So yeah, if possible, try to go for more than 4 cores, but if you don't have a choice, it's not an unplayable game either. And for the testing, I waited to be in an area with a lot of foliage, so that's what I'm showing you in this video. A lot of foliage at the start, then we go to a more artificial place that improves the frame rate significantly, and at the end of the footage there's a lot more vegetation, enemies and effects showing up to really stress the GPU and CPU. And one thing I forgot to mention, the dynamic resolution option is pretty good, at least in my opinion. Just put a maximum frame rate, that is the frame rate that you want to target, then enable dynamic resolution and the game will dynamically adjust it. Of course, this will mean a lower resolution, but I found the frame rate to be significantly more stable. I recommend avoiding the 30 FPS cap. It doesn't seem completely well done. It sometimes drops into the upper 20s instead of staying at 30 with dynamic resolution, so selecting 45, at least in my case, fixed the problem. But anyway guys, that's about it. I hope you keep enjoying the video, thanks for watching and see you next time.
Your end is near. Let's take him on. Gun opening. Fine. Watch my back. Kill one of us. Don't let up. Are all the flame troopers down? We'll take you down. Try, Jesse. I'll get you. Keep up the pressure. Be here. see an intruder up there. We're down. Hurry, end it. Nice hit. You made your last mistake. Eyes over there. All right. Stop him. Target is quick. Let's take him out. He can't match us. Oh no! Oh no, no, no! I've never seen anything like that! You and me now. It's not over yet! Yourselves. You and him. Jedi's hurting. Don't let up. Hit him. Blast him again. Dodge this. I think I'm done. Look out! Stay on you! Jedi, form up! You got it! Killing us! Come on! Keep your distance! Going to end us up! You can't beat us all! Let you pay! Your life is mine, Jedi! Did you see something move?
Stim, here!
You won't escape me! All right, again! Steal the intruder! Gonna need a second! Stay on you! Got it! Oh, can we win? Get up here! I can't get him! I've got you! Hurry up! Chapter. He's down. Target and fire.
Come on, don't let...
An intruder.
I copy. Move in.
Shoot the intruder.
You'll die like the rest of your pathetic kind.
Hey, did you see that?
Enemy reached. Get him.
Your turn.
I'm cracking him.
We'll vanquish you. No survivors. Shoot it.
Catch him.
Stim, here!
I need a minute. Come on, hit him.
BD1?
We win. He moved. Watch him. Look up there. Blast him.
Get in here. Watch yourself.
Take the shot. Hey, an intruder. Fight us, you coward. I won't let you kill me. I'll smash your face. I see you, Jedi. Enemy is spry. I've got an opening. Incoming! I got this. Hit him! Blasting again! Quick! Keep your heads down! I think I'm done.
Stim! Throw it!